Welcome, everyone, to the We Three Kings Wrestling Podcast. How are you guys doing tonight? I'm your host, Ben Mossaller. Along with me are the other two kings, Brandon King and Troy Cook, and we are very happy to have our first guest ever on the podcast tonight. Please welcome Ryan. You might know him from TikTok as TheMachoFan. And man, it's great to have you on tonight, Ryan. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic. I'm excited to join the Three Kings podcast, and I'm excited to talk the Royal Rumble. It's one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time, so I'm excited for it.
Yeah, definitely the Royal Rumble is a fun one. I think for all of us, definitely for me, I have to agree that this is definitely the best one because there's so many surprises usually. You never know who you're going to see, what you're going to get. So that is why I enjoy it. So Ryan, we're just going to talk to you a little bit, get to know you so the viewers can get to know you. Then later on in the podcast, we will be breaking down the Royal Rumble, giving you our predictions and really breaking down each of the Royal Rumble matches, kind of throwing out different scenarios, how we see it might go down this Saturday at the Royal Rumble. But Ryan, let's first ask you a question about your TikTok. You're well known on TikTok with your wrestling content, over 1 million likes. That's really incredible. I have seen you doing a lot of promo battles, doing all different kinds of wrestling stuff. You were in the announcer contest for SummerSlam. I tried to do that. I didn't get on, but you were featured. I don't know if it was on a Raw or a SmackDown beforehand, your video on there. So kind of tell us how you got into the TikTok and then like the boom, now you got 1 million likes. Just kind of break us down.
Of course, it definitely did not happen overnight. I was one of those closeted wrestling fans where I didn't have a lot of wrestling merchandise that I would wear. I have like the cups at home. I would have some posters on my wall, but I never had a lot of wrestling attire until about 2020 when the world kind of started to shut down and I started to be at home more and I started looking at like, hey, I need more wrestling content. Like I had a few friends that I worked with that we would be able to talk wrestling. So that's where I'd get my advice from. But then again, when we stopped working together, I went to other venues and that's where it led me to wrestling Twitter. And then TikTok emerged during that time. And I just started getting on TikTok and started just seeing what I would see on like wrestling Twitter and be like, hey, like this is what they're saying on wrestling Twitter. And I'd make a video about it on TikTok. And all of a sudden, and then I started taking my own takes on everything, and it just kind of boomed from there. And then I've started meeting so many wrestlers, and it's literally changed my life perspective of wrestling in a say. Like there's people that I was like, oh my God, it's a wrestler. I wouldn't want, like before, like I'd go to wrestling shows and I'd be the person sitting in the back, not want to talk to the wrestlers. Now I'm the one starting the chants. I'm like, okay, I know what they're trying to do now. I know the story this wrestler is trying to get across. I'm going to try to help them tell it. I'm going to try to help get the crowd in this favor to let them know, like, it just became so much more of an art form. I'm a theater person at heart. And so seeing wrestling and being actually getting involved with like TikTok and seeing where wrestlers grew from. And like Mikey O'Shea is one of my favorites, Willie Finesse, and then meeting those people who are actually wrestlers and friends like Heel Hugs, who is just a fan like I was. And we were able just to wanted to be wrestlers and create promo battles. And so it literally just sparked out of the blue of just a wrestling fan reaching out to other wrestling fans. And here we are now.
And before we get to Brandon, you talked about Mikey. He gave you a shout out at one of the events. How was that? I mean, that's one of your best videos on TikTok, but that had to be awesome.
It was literally like, it was at like a show with 50 people there, but you could have told me it was at WrestleMania 17 because like the joy that I felt just hearing my name being called from the ring. Ryan, where are you at? Oh, yeah, like it made me pop so hard. Like I can never thank Mikey enough for that. And Mikey's grown so much since then. I just hope he gets his shot because he's had his chances before and it's just wasn't the moment. I hope he gets his moment because he deserves it.
Now, for those that might not know Mikey, you want to tell him where he's from, and were you aware that he was going to give you a shout out that night?
Mikey O'Shea is from Orange County. He wrestles Orange County, Vegas, the West Coast, Washington. He's the champion at 3 different promotions right now. I believe he's still the champion at 3. And he's wrestled on Raw and SmackDown as like background roles with the Rosebuds. I didn't know who he was prior to TikTok. And then once he was on TikTok and there was a moment in my TikTok career where I was TikTok career, like I say, like it's a big thing, but in my TikTok rise, when I was getting a lot of followers, I had that moment where I was like, I'm a nobody. Why are people following me for my wrestling content? I don't know anything. So I was shouting out other wrestlers. And Mikey O'Shea was one of the wrestlers I shouted out because he would post TikToks of literally him doing all his wrestling moves. And it reminded me of like old school wrestling, like video games, when you're like, okay, here's clothesline 1, here's clothesline 39, here's clothesline 52. And he would just do different variations of these wrestling moves and post them to TikTok. And so I wanted to show my fans, hey, if you're really into wrestling, go see this wrestler. And I found out he's friends with one of my mutual friends I went to college with because I'm from Southern California. And then I found out he wrestles in my backyard, basically, where in Southern and right here in Anaheim in Stanton, California. And I was like, oh, I got to see a show. And I told him I was coming to the show. At intermission, he told me, hey, I got a surprise. Have your camera ready. And that's all I knew. And then magic happened. But he was also doing the Raid Shadow Legend TikToks prior to that, like taking like just videos of like pretty girls and be like, hey guys, you know you're not going to get that, but here's Raid Shadow Legends, and like give that. And so that was kind of his thing. And to have him put that in a wrestling match, it's genius. It's really genius.
Yeah, that is definitely incredible. So I want to move on to Brandon. I know he has a question for you, and then to Troy. Go ahead, Brandon.
Hey, Ryan. First of all, we appreciate you coming on to the show. We are incredibly proud of what you've done thus far, the viewers that you've had. But in speaking of, wrestlers and everything of that nature, can you tell me who your favorite wrestler is of all time? Have you met any wrestlers in person? And which one did you like and which one didn't you like?
Of course. I'm sorry, I might have shut my video off there for a second, but my favorite wrestlers of all time, and it's down to 2. It's obviously Stone Cold Steve Austin, who I grew up with. It's the guy. Like, you can't love wrestling without loving Stone Cold. And then where I get my namesake from, the Macho Man Randy Savage. Just the stories that Macho Man would tell and his conversion from wrestling to commentary always made me think like, oh, he's a do-it-all kind of guy. He was the Jericho before Jericho in a sense. And so I love Macho Man Randy Savage. Rest in peace. I loved everything he did for every promotion he went through. And the fact that he wasn't a world champion like Vision. Like, he was always but he was always owned the show. I just love the fact that you could be the best friend and kind of still be the namesake. And going into wrestlers that I've met, especially with TikTok, I've been able to have the luxury of meeting so many different wrestlers that I've never even expected. I go to GCW shows all the time and I love seeing all those wrestlers there. One of my favorite wrestlers I've ever met is my man Alex Zane, Ari Sterling from WWE. I used to watch him in GCW right before the pandemic when I first started getting into GCW, and then he got signed to WWE, and I was so excited for him because it was like one of those first people. Like, he was my CM Punk in a sense, where people were like, my friend Heel Hugs got to see CM Punk wrestle before CM Punk went to WWE. And so now he has that moment where he's like, oh, I knew that guy. And he's the best in the world. And so I hold Alex Zane in that regard, is like, he was the guy, like, I knew about him right before he hit. And then he hit and I'm like, oh yes. And then I get to see him and meet him and see his transformations in GCW. It's fantastic. As the wrestler that I met and I hated meeting, It's obviously Tony Deppen, that despicable piece of crap, Tony Deppen in GCW. Nothing that he did really that pissed me off, except he pushed me. He literally attacked me in front of a wrestling show. And so like me and him will always have beef. And Matt Cardona sucks. I never met him. He blocked me in person in Twitter, and I saw him in real life and he avoided my eye contact. And so Matt Cardona and I have it on site too.
That's funny because Troy and his wife know Cardona really well. So maybe we'll put in a good word for you if he watches.
I don't want a good word. I want him to know that he deserves no credit.
Yeah. And I got to meet, Troy and I and his wife got to meet Sammy Guevara, Ty Conti, back at a Comic-Con a little while ago. And he was awesome. He, signed a figure of mine. He was like, you can hold the TNT championship as long as you don't like MJF. And I was like, oh, I love MJF's humor, but you're a better wrestler. So I sucked up to him and I got to hold the title belt. So that was pretty cool. But moving on to Troy, I know he's got a question for you.
Brian, welcome aboard. As you can probably know, WWE has got rid of over 80 wrestlers in the last calendar year. And not only are the wrestlers gone, but the superior writing has also disappeared. Do you think right now AEW is a superior product, or do you still think that the beast from the east, meaning WWE, is still on top?
I believe wrestling's at the best point, and it doesn't matter who's on top right now. I believe that with AEW where it's at, most weeks I agree that AEW has a better storyline progression, but WWE has the stars. And so I am just so happy that there's not a monopoly anymore of just having WWE and Ring of Honor and Impact on side shows that you have to like find a way to watch a week later, in that sense. And so the fact that AEW is providing this atmosphere is like, hey, we're going to run in competition with you and not run behind you, which is what I felt like the other promotions have allowed other promotions to rise. Like Impact, I feel like Impact's always been in the spot where they're like, I don't care what WWE does, we're gonna do what we do, which is a terrible spot if you're gonna try to run a promotion on TV, because they're not gonna gain the success if you're running on Access TV at 11 o'clock at night on West Coast time. Like it's just not gonna work out that way. But with AEW Arise, you can see the different levels of wrestling. So I love going back to GCW. I feel like GCW is closing in on that third wrestling promotion role, just because they don't need to go every week. They're playing that ECW role. I feel like we're back in the wrestling of the 90s, where you have WWF, WCW, and ECW, and they're all kind of merging to their own role, that it doesn't matter who's on top. It's just going to matter where the viewers trend to. And right now they're split.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point with GCW. You said that you're a huge fan of that. You get to see it a lot in Southern California. I mean, that's up and coming. Troy's been talking a lot about it. Just what are your thoughts on GCW? What's going to make it be the next AEW or WWE? I don't know if we get that far, but what do you like about it that it could get popular with a lot of wrestling fans?
My favorite thing about the GCW is the vibe that the wrestlers have for the locker room. You get that, like, these guys will go out and have a death match with each other, and then you'll see, like, it's about the quality of the wrestling, and like they're putting on the show for the fans, and it's all about us, which is what ECW was always about. They were out there, they're putting their bodies on the line for the entertainment of the fans, and they understood that, like, hey, I might jump through this glass and someone might get pushed through these flaming tables, but we're doing it for you guys. And it's just that camaraderie of the fandom that's why I love Nick Gage. Every time you see Nick Gage in public, he's like, I'm doing this for you. And he'll sit with the fans. He'll talk with each and every person that's waiting there. And that's just what you want. And when you go to WWE shows, it takes you 90 minutes to even get in the arena. Like I was when I went to the SmackDown show in Ontario. Like, it's just like, there's just that different element of how they treat their fandom.
Well, I thank you for answering those questions. I feel like us and the viewers got to know you a little bit better now. So let's talk about the Royal Rumble. And man, this is the best time of year, the start of the road to WrestleMania. We found out who is going to main event those shows. But before we get to our predictions, I first want to talk about a favorite Royal Rumble moment or match that you can recall. I mean, you talk about the biggest returns ever in that event. Ryan, we'll start with you. What's your favorite, if you can pick one, Royal Rumble moment?
Oh man, I would just have to say it's not just necessarily a moment, but I go back to Stone Cold Steve Austin, just having the best trilogy of Royal Rumble wins. The fact that I think it was 97 or 98 when he was just started number 3 or 4 and just started just throwing people out, sitting on the turnbuckle, checking his fake watch, seeing when the next person was coming in. Those moments were just fantastic, and it's the surprise of the Royal Rumble. Like that's the whole point of, like you said it earlier, like it's not necessarily that any Royal Rumble stands out. It's the fact that it's the first pay-per-view of the year for the most years, and that you're getting those surprise returns, those new inductees that, like, oh, are they going to be the next big thing or not? And it's just that surprise element that is it for me.
I say the Royal Rumble moment that is not the favorite, but the most shocking one is when Maven eliminated The Undertaker. That in itself was the big shocker, because that just solidified that year Undertaker as the biggest heel in that time, the World Wrestling Federation, and nobody wanted to mess with The Undertaker at that time, because when he said he was Big Evil, oh, trust me, he lived up to that name. That included the hair change, new music. To this day, my favorite theme from The Undertaker is when he did Big Evil with the song "You're Gonna Pay." So that right there, that was one of the most shocking moments of the Royal Rumble. But Stone Cold winning it 3 times, I mean, who else can do that but him? So, but definitely Maven eliminated The Undertaker was the shocking moment for me.
My all-time favorite memory is when AJ Styles showed up for the first time back in 2016. I had been a fan of his from ROH and also from Impact/TNA, and I had heard online and had read that his contract was up with ROH and I think New Japan at that point in time. I could be wrong, but I think New Japan, and that he was possibly coming to WWE, but I never saw him jumping ship to WWE. That when he showed up and the pop he got from the marks in the crowd and the fans and that knew him was just incredible. So that's probably my all-time favorite Royal Rumble moment. And I can honestly say that I go back to the original 1988 Royal Rumble, and I remember watching it live on USA. It wasn't even a pay-per-view at that point in time. It was just in place of their Monday night show that was nothing more than a compilation of matches from recent history at that point in time. How it has grown and how it has become big is beyond belief right now.
Mine has to be in 2008 when you had the return of John Cena and that music hit. They're just some wrestlers' musics, when they hit, the crowd just goes nuts. CM Punk, John Cena, and just seeing the face of Triple H in that ring, like what is going on, and the crowd pop. It just makes it extra. And you talk just a couple years ago with Edge, when he returned. Lose my voice, excuse me. But that was just wild when Edge returned, and the crowd just went nuts. I forget where that was. Was that in a ballpark? Maybe was that Houston? Maybe I'm thinking maybe, but
yeah. It was Astro Stadium.
Okay, thank you, Troy.
Because during the Drew and I don't remember who Drew fought right now, but they ended up on top of the dugout, if I remember correctly.
Right. It was wasn't it
Corbin?
Roman and Corbin?
It was Roman Corbin. You're right. You're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yep.
But anyways, just those wrestlers that make that pop it makes the Rumble incredible to see. All right, the anticipation, who is going to be maybe returning or debuting as AJ Styles did at the Rumble that time. So as we talk about all of this, we're going to break it down even more for you here shortly. But before we get to that, we're going to make our predictions for the matches at the Royal Rumble, starting with the Raw Women's Championship. We got Becky Lynch versus Doudrop. And if you can recall, just a couple weeks ago at day one, we had Liv Morgan taking on Becky Lynch, and she couldn't get the job done. Becky did cheat a little bit there, but then they brought in Doudrop, Bianca Belair to challenge Becky Lynch. And ultimately, it came down to a triple threat match where Becky Lynch interrupted the match, pulling out Bianca Belair and ultimately having Doudrop win. So it's a weird match for me at the Royal Rumble between Doudrop and Becky Lynch. I don't know about her as a competitor. I feel it's like a fill-in match for WrestleMania. But Troy, is there any way that Doudrop can retain this title? Or I should say win this title? You're still muted. Oh.
Sorry about that.
You're good.
I don't see any way that she's going to win the title. Ben, like you and I had talked about earlier this evening, with Asuka and Bailey and probably Ronda Rousey coming back, I could see Doudrop being one of the ones that is going to be a one and done feud, and she's going to drop out of the picture and drop down the card rather quickly. I just don't see there's a reason. I don't see there's a reason. I don't see there's a storyline behind her winning it. Outside of the fact it might be the underdog and well, I get picked on because of how I'm built. I get picked on because of my size. It's the Nia Jax thing all over again from 4 or 5 years ago. But unless they go that route, I don't see a reason or a purpose for her winning it.
Okay. There's two questions here. Can Doudrop win it? Yeah. Should Doudrop win it? No. This is the issue I've been having with the WWE. Right away. Instant gratification. She's in the main event right away. She's getting pushed right away. She's getting spotlight right away. I don't see it happening. It's gonna be a one and done ordeal. This is a match you could probably go use the bathroom for because there's not much is gonna happen with this match. Because we all know what Becky Lynch is gonna do. She's gonna cheat. She's gonna use the ropes because that's her go-to. That's her. With all due respect to Finn Balor, coup de grace. Okay, so with that being said, I say Becky Lynch is retaining the title, but I look for her to drop it at Mania.
Ryan, your thoughts?
I agree that Becky Lynch has to win this match, but purely for the reason Brandon said is she has to cheat to win to build on her story that's how she's getting this belt, because the only way Becky Lynch losing this belt storyline makes sense is if she loses it to Bianca Belair clean. Because of the way they built that storyline, Becky said it's not over, and the fact that they kind of pushed that feud under the rug makes me seem that they're going to either try to push that off to a WrestleMania where it's going to be Bianca versus Becky at Mania, or they're going to kind of push it off for later in the year. But anyway, like, this is just a match just to prove that Becky will do anything to win, and that it doesn't matter who it is, Doudrop will take the fall and not lose any heat from it.
Yeah, to me, it's just a fill-in match for WrestleMania. They just needed to put somebody there, and it's a Doudrop. I can see that maybe that's giving her the spotlight, like Brandon said, to see what she can actually do in a main event. We talked a little bit on the podcast about Liv Morgan, how I think when they had the title on Raw, Becky defended on Raw back in December, and then day one, I think they were pushing her to see what they had and if she could main event as a women's champion. And I thought that she did all right, but I'm a big fan of Liv Morgan. And I think she's improved over the years, which is why I like her in that way that she's made a big improvement. But I think they're just trying to pick and choose, can this person main event as being a champion? Doudrop, I don't see that happening. I see it as a filler match, and Becky Lynch is going to come out as still your Raw Women's Champion. Now we move on to a very intriguing match between Edge and his wife Beth Phoenix and Miz and his wife Maurice, a mixed tag match we haven't seen in a while. And you talk about some of the greatest. And if you guys watch the podcast, right around Valentine's Day, we have a mixed tag bracket going by those that are either married or dating in wrestling. And Edge and Beth Phoenix are number one based off of titles. So that's very interesting to note. But only 2 spots below them at third is Miz and Maurice. So if you take a look at this, this is going to be a huge match, mainly for the women. I think here, I think this is big for Beth Phoenix and Maurice. But Ryan, who do you think wins, and what do you think about this match at the Rumble?
I think this is going to be one of those fun matches where we're just going to see a lot of fun spots. It's going to be one of those comedic matches. It could go either way. If Miz and Maurice win, it has to be from heel tactics, just to kind of, like you said, put them more closer in the bracket for Valentine's Day, which I could very likely see. But Beth Phoenix coming back, and Edge with his where he's at, I don't see them really taking a clean loss. So if they do lose, it's going to have to be dirty.
I have read and I have seen on numerous places that this could be one of those turning point matches, meaning that Maurice may turn on Mizanin before it's said and done. I don't know if I want to see that happen, because I don't know what they're going to do with her after that, unless they make her manage somebody else, because I don't see her becoming involved permanently in the women's title hunt on either show. So outside of just causing her husband to lose or getting tired of her husband, I'm not sure what would be the purpose of Maurice turning on the Miz. But I agree with you, Ryan, 100%. If it's going to be a clean win, it's going to be Edge and the Glamazon, or if it's going to be Miz and Maurice, it's going to be some kind of a cheap win.
Okay, here we go. This is what I see. I say Miz and Maurice, as much as I can't stand them, they'll get the dupe this time. But I see this being a continuous feud up to WrestleMania. Look for Maurice to turn on the Miz at WrestleMania. You want to talk about embarrassment? Get embarrassed on the grandest stage of all, WrestleMania. Beth and Edge will pick the dupe up at WrestleMania, but Miz and Maurice will get the dupe by hook and crook at Royal Rumble.
Yeah,
do we know when Miz and Morrison airs again? It's over now, right? When does it stops, or right before WrestleMania? It could be a great season ender. Like, what's going to happen with the next season if they did?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I don't know about that, but I don't think this is over. I think this is going to continue into WrestleMania. And I keep going back and forth with this one, to be honest with you. I just, and it's, again, if it's a clean win, it's going to be Edge and Beth Phoenix. And I don't see them losing to Miz and Maurice, but we saw Maurice pull out a brick. I mean, they are going to do something dirty to win. And I think Edge has got Miz, but when you take, and Beth easily over Maurice wins it for me. So I think I have to go with Edge and Beth Phoenix, but I honestly am not going to be surprised if somehow they cheat and they get the victory. But this ain't over yet. This is a decent storyline, and on Raw, this has been some of the main events. You had her birthday last week. You had a renewal of vows between the two of them. So WWE is really pushing the storyline. I don't think it's going to end right here, but if I had to choose, I'm going to go with Edge and Beth Phoenix to win this one. Now we move on to the WWE Championship, and will this play a factor? That the Universal Championship might play a factor into the actual Royal Rumble match, but we have Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley, and the fans, and especially me, have wanted this match for a long time. Two beasts in the ring just duking it out. And I hope that WWE writes it correctly, because I don't want it to be like a 3-minute match. I want it to be a long match. Those two just going right at each other. How do I see it going down? I don't know. Again, it plays a big factor into the men's Royal Rumble match because, and we'll get to that in a couple minutes, but if one of these people loses, I see them entering the Royal Rumble and potentially winning. So I like in this scenario Brock to retain. And I'll get to the reasons why a little bit later when we talk about the Royal Rumble match, and it could go multiple ways. But I think the safest play here is Brock to retain. But I think this match could be the match of the night if it's written correctly. Brandon, agree, disagree?
Let me say this right now to the WWE. 3 words. 4. Don't screw this up. These are 2 behemoth beasts that deserve the spotlight for tonight besides the Royal Rumble. This matchup should go the distance. A 3-minute squash match is not going to work. This needs to be neither man refuses to die. But as close as Bobby Lashley will get to it, I see Brock Lesnar keep holding on to it for something bigger down the road. So as much as I love Bobby Lashley, as much as I like the fact that he's turned into a baby face, he needs an MVP needs to ride off into the sunset. I'm sorry. I say Brock retains.
Let's go against conventional wisdom here and go with Lashley. The reason why I'm basing this on is the fact that Brock has been very cocky, very arrogant, very snarky towards Lashley throughout this whole storyline, even with the Bobby Hoos dialogue. What would happen, or what do you guys think about the idea of it being even almost a squash match, like Goldberg versus Brock back at Survivor Series, probably 16, 17, when nobody thought Goldberg had a chance, and he came back and he destroyed Brock within I think it was 3 minutes or something like that. It would be a twist. It would be a shocker. People wouldn't see it coming. I'm not sure I'd be opposed to it.
Yeah, Ryan. I mean, that could go either way. These two are both really good in the ring. And I think one thing to note is, what part will Paul Heyman and MVP play in this match? Will that take into effect the outcome of the match?
I don't think the managers are going to play much effect to it, but I do agree with Troy. Like, I think this is going to be a Goldberg Brock Lesnar kind of rematch, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, because these guys can go a little bit longer than Goldberg could at the time. And we're gonna see Bobby Lashley go over. Why? Because what was Brock's signed on to do before he got the WWE title? He was supposed to go up against Roman. It only makes sense that this was just a filler to get to this moment, just so Bobby Lashley can get to it now that COVID has run through the WWE. So hopefully no one else has it, and that we can get Brock and Roman at WrestleMania, which I kind of gave a spoiler there, who I think is going to win the Men's Royal Rumble.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. We're going to get to that in a minute, and that will probably tell you who's going to win this next match. We have the Universal Championship between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. And again, all of the wrestling fans are going back and forth. Does Roman retain and then set up maybe a unification match or a title versus title match versus Lesnar at WrestleMania? Does he lose the belt to Seth Rollins? They're entering the Royal Rumble to take on Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. There's a lot of things that could happen here, and this might be one of the trickiest ones to pick. But let's go to Ryan, back to him. What do you think? Who's going to win this one?
I love the speculation of Brock versus Roman for the unification title match. However, then what's the point of having the Royal Rumble unless we're going to do a Jericho undisputed title Rock Stone Cold kind of match? However, I do think Roman's going over. I think it's going to be a great match. This might be a 20 to 30-minute match. We're not going to see John Moxley. However, we might hear the chants. But I think it's just going to be a great match because these two guys are great workers. Seth Rollins is killing it. I don't care. He doesn't need to lose. He doesn't need to win this match, and he can lose this match, and he's still going to be the drippiest god of them all.
For all intents and purposes, after 500 plus days, Roman loses the title Sunday. Roman's going to lose. Who else knows Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns better than his former Shield brother, Seth Rollins? Seth Rollins knows every crook, every cranny, and everything that is going to be entailed when it comes to Roman. And if Roman loses on Sunday, get ready for the bloodline to explode, because it's going to. Roman loses, it's over. I don't see Roman probably winning having another title run. And probably right now, Roman probably isn't going to be looking for another title run, because sources are Roman is still suffering from the effects of him having COVID. So that came over the airwaves of what I was reading earlier this week, that he's still suffering some side effects from him having COVID, even though he's vaccinated. But that's another story for another time. But 500 days, Roman loses the title. Seth Rollins gets it. He's going back to Raw.
Okay, let's play off of that. Seth Rollins wins it. He goes back to Raw. Then they never finish a storyline between Brock and Roman. So what is the possibility that, going against what I said originally, but building off what you said, Brock beats Lashley, takes that championship belt back to SmackDown. So you'll have one on Raw, meaning Rollins. You'll have Lesnar on SmackDown. Roman will get pissed, end up in the Royal Rumble, win the Royal Rumble, and we'll finally see the Brock Roman payoff at WrestleMania.
Has Brock Lesnar ever won the Royal Rumble? I'm trying to think off recent memory. Like, it wouldn't have been recent, right? He entered at one.
Ryan, I think he won back in 2003, because I think he was the person to eliminate The Undertaker.
I think you're right too. I was like, if it was, it had to have been in the first years of his wrestling. Because I remember when he came in as like the champion and was like, and then Drew McIntyre took him out. They weren't saying it was going to be his first win. So I would like to see Roman actually. Roman, that would be interesting. That would be interesting to see Roman versus that. I didn't think about that aspect.
It's very possible, because if you recall, Brock Lesnar is a free agent, so he can go over to SmackDown and take that belt with them if that happens. So I think either way, if we see Roman Reigns lose the belt, he's going to enter the Rumble and win the Rumble. I could also see, if they want to keep with the storyline and to just throw out a curveball here, you have Brock retain the title, have Lashley potentially win the Rumble, or have those two face off, and maybe a big return. I'm a huge Fiend guy. You can see the stuff in the back. What if Bray Wyatt were to return? If you recall, Roman Reigns won the title off of the Fiend, and he hasn't lost it since. That'd be a great storyline to come back to. And rumors are that he's probably not going to return to wrestling for a while, but you could have a rematch between Lesnar and Lashley, and then have Wyatt and Roman, which would be a good storyline too. But I think we're narrowing it down to, it's going to be Brock versus Roman, whether it's title versus title, whether they're fighting for one title. I think that's what's going to happen at WrestleMania, but it's just hard to say right now. And it's hard to pick against Roman Reigns since he's had the title for 500 days. How do we pick against him? I just can't do it right now, but who's the guy to lose to? Possibly Seth Rollins. I think that he would be a good face. He's proven to be a top of the brand for a while now. And I think he could carry it over on Monday Night Raw. It's just a question, who would he take on? Maybe Lashley, maybe even Kevin Owens would come at him, as they're friends right now. There's different ways to look around it, but ultimately I'm going to stick with Roman until he's proven that he's not going to win. Now to get down to the nitty gritty of the best 2 matches of the night, the Royal Rumble matches. And we're going to start with the women. And I believe right now they have around 23 women that are going to be in the Royal Rumble, which they've already announced some crazy participants such as the Bella Twins returning, Michelle McCool, Kelly, and even Mickey James, the Impact champ, is going to be over. And we've talked a lot on the podcast leading up to this about a forbidden door, that they are bringing in wrestlers from other promotions such as Impact, possibly Ring of Honor could be coming in here. But as we break down the Royal Rumble match, and we'll go back to you, Ryan, and we're going to talk about the Women's Rumble first. First of all, what superstars, women superstars, do you think are going to return that haven't been announced yet? How do you see this thing going down? And ultimately, who do you think is going to win the Women's Royal Rumble?
First off, can I just like reprimand the WWE for just announcing the Bella Twins? Like that is literally that's like the edge pop in the palm of your hand that you're just gonna give that out in the first like week of the Royal Rumble announcements. That I couldn't believe. Like at least announce one, not both. But either way, the biggest pop is going to be Paige. I believe we're going to see Paige. She's kind of referenced it subtly. Oh, it's January. They must be talking about my name again. I would love to see Paige just make an appearance, even if she's not 100% cleared, just to come in, do a little top rope move, and then get thrown out. It'd be awesome. The crowd would love it.
Has Trish Stratus been named yet? Okay. I'm wondering if she's going to be back, because she has also teased that she'd like to come back for one more run and possibly have a feud with either Becky or with Charlotte. So I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being Trish Stratus coming back. Who do I think is going to win? I've also heard about Ronda Rousey coming back. And I honestly would not be opposed to Ronda Rousey coming back, because I really would like to see a final feud between her and Becky. Because when Becky beat her for the title at WrestleMania 3 or 4 years ago, if you remember correctly, it was a mess up with the referee, and actually the pin wasn't clean. They made it out to be clean, but it really wasn't clean. So I'd like to see one more go around with Becky and with Ronda. And there's enough animosity, I believe, in real life between those two, that they could make it really interesting. Plus the fact they can both kind of promo. Now, who would be the face? Who would be the heel? I don't know, because remember when Ronda Rousey left, the fans weren't real big on her. So I don't know if they're going to make, if it goes this way, if Becky's going to turn face again, which wouldn't surprise me, because she has struggled as a heel. The fans still like her, and the fans still back her up. So I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up being the face and Ronda the heel in the storyline.
Okay. So, first things first, Ryan, you and Troy will get along very well, because he's not a big fan of the Bella Twins, just like you aren't. So there you go. You guys have something in common. Honestly, for all intents and purposes, I rather see Bianca Belair be the person to win it again. Because I'm going back to what Ryan said earlier. If that feud's not done between Bianca and Belair, restart it, bring it and rehash it, because there's still some stuff unresolved left. If they let that feud go unheard of, if they let that feud go by the wayside, WWE would have done a disservice. And again, I think the three of us, plus you, Ryan, could probably go to Stamford, Connecticut and apply for the creative writing job, because obviously they don't know what they're doing right now. So with that being said, I want my girl, Bianca Belair, to win it for the second time.
I just want to
numerous times that we can write better storylines. We have talked about it. We have shown we can write better storylines, which is really sad, but hey, it is what it is.
And I have applied for that lead writer's position in Stamford, and I haven't gotten a call back yet.
I think the people that truly care about the WWE have applied for that job. So, Ronda Rousey right now is the betting favorite to win the Royal Rumble. And we don't even know if she's going to be back yet. I think it's crazy to think that. Bianca Belair right behind her. One name that's in the top 3 now that wasn't of recent is Alexa Bliss. Now we've seen her come on and do like some therapy counseling sessions, but we haven't seen her wrestle in the ring and ever since they ripped the Lily doll up about a month or two ago. Asuka's also there. I think Asuka makes a return. I think Paige, like you said, Ryan, there's a lot of rumors that she's going to return. I think Bailey's going to return too. I think she's going to come out and she has a good chance of winning this match. Does she turn back to a face? Possibly. I could see Bailey take on Charlotte for the belt. I think that would be a good match. And then you just automatically throw in Bianca and Becky. I think that would be 2 great events. Rhea Ripley's a favorite in the top. It's weird but they have Charlotte Flair there at the top. Maybe she comes in and wins Royal Rumble. I don't see that really happening, but interesting enough, Ronda Rousey really wasn't on the list going into just 2 days from the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. She is the betting favorite. Now that would be a great storyline, a great way to go, but it's tough to say since she hasn't even returned yet. But if we see Bianca, Bailey, Asuka, maybe Trish Stratus, Paige return, I mean, this could be a really good women's Royal Rumble.
Ben, I had a thought. Just like MJF is the worst heel right now, but doing his job over at AEW, it wouldn't shock me if Ronda Rousey did an MJF for the WWE, because the fans don't like her and she don't like them. And that's evident through the tweets on Twitter. The fans don't care for her and she don't care for the fans.
I think she'd still get a huge
pop. That would be
pop.
An interesting thought.
I think she'd still get a huge pop though, returning, because it's Ronda Rousey. I mean, just like when Brock Lesnar came back, whether you like him or not, it's Brock Lesnar. Ryan, what do you think?
I'm going to say, like, I think it's going to be my bet to win the Women's Royal Rumble is Bailey. Bailey's going to come back and win it, but that's because, like, what Troy was saying, I think it's going to be Bailey, or what Brandon was saying, Bailey versus Charlotte's the SmackDown women's, right? And then it's going to be Bianca versus Becky. But, like, that's going to come out of fruition of what their storyline is. The winner of the SmackDown's Royal Rumble, or the winner of the Royal Rumble, it's got to be someone of I could see Bianca winning it and giving her that validation, but it has to be someone coming back at this point. They've hyped so many comebacks in just their announcement. And the men's Royal Rumble, there's 8 people announced. So, like, it's got to be a big pop that we're expecting. So it's got to be Bailey. And I think that she's just the one thing I like about Bailey. I think when you said Bianca, or not Bianca, that Ronda should be like the MJF. The problem with her being the MJF is AEW fans like MJF. We like to hate MJF, but we like MJF. People don't like Ronda Rousey. It wouldn't.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think Bailey's going to win it too. I think that there's a better storyline there. Would it be wrong though to bring back like so many of those good wrestlers though? Because then you take a look at wrestlers like, I don't know, Liv Morgan, or kind of the mid-level wrestlers. Like, you're going to bring back Asuka, you're going to bring back Paige. Paige probably wouldn't be full-time, but you'd assume Asuka would. You'd assume Bailey would be back full-time. Some of these wrestlers, and Ronda Rousey, you think that maybe that would actually hurt the women's division to say you bring back Bailey and then you bring back Asuka, but you don't have anywhere to put Asuka.
Then what do you do with Lita? Because there's something stirring right now between Lita and Charlotte Flair. Where do you plug Lita in at?
We got a few pay-per-views in the meantime.
Yeah. She could be a filler. I think Elimination Chamber is after this one in February, actually.
It's in Saudi.
And we all... And the thing with Ronda Rousey, if Ronda does come back, she's going to fight Natalya first. That's who she's beefing with on Twitter, if you follow the Twitter storylines. And so it's going to have to be Ronda versus Natalya to get Natalya back to face.
Yeah, it was interesting. And Natalya's one of those ones you still love her. She tried when we saw her live in Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago. she had to really say a lot of stuff to get the crowd to boo her. People still got that pop. And same with Becky Lynch. She's trying to be a heel, and it's really just not working right now because people still love the man. And I could see that happening with Ronda Rousey, maybe more hate, but still, there's still going to be a pop if she were to return to the women's event. So there's a lot of ways that this could go. I think there's more ways that the men's Royal Rumble could turn out. But I think we're going to have a lot of great returns, not just a waste of women's wrestlers. This could be maybe the most stacked women's Royal Rumble we ever seen so far to this point. So we're looking forward to that. But now we got to talk about the main event, the match that we've waited a year for, and that is the men's Royal Rumble match. We've already kind of talked about our predictions for it. There's been 20 some wrestlers, and to be honest with you, who they have announced so far, there's really nobody that's like, oh, I think that they're going to win. It seems like a very weak cast so far that they have for the Royal Rumble match. You have a lot of tag teams in there, like the Dirty Dogs. I think that Alpha Academy's in there. Just trying to fill some spots, kind of some mid-level wrestlers. Probably the biggest name, Big E, AJ Styles, Randy Orton, of course, is in there. But I mean, this is a match that everybody's going to be looking forward to. So, Troy, let's start with you. Your thoughts. You kind of gave us a little bit here about who you think might win, but how do you see this breaking down? And if this Forbidden Door is true, who do you see returning or maybe showing up from another promotion?
Okay, we'll get the Forbidden Door out of the way first. I think if it's going to be anybody from AEW, we'll do AEW first. I think if it's going to be anybody from AEW, it's going to be Jericho. And the reason why I'm thinking Jericho is because he still seems to have a good relationship with the company. Plus, he did the Stone Cold Broken Skull sessions about a year ago, and that didn't seem to cause too much problems or too much headaches. So I'm thinking AEW wise, it's probably going to be Jericho. I definitely don't see it being Moxley because Moxley ran his mouth too much on Jericho's podcast when WWE released him that I'm not sure that WWE would be ready to give him another shot right now. But if it's money, it's money, and anything's possible in WWE. Who else do I think has got the possibility of winning the Rumble? Well, it's like we've talked about. If Roman loses the title, he's going to probably put himself in the Rumble. He has the opportunity. Brock loses the title, he's going to put himself in the Royal Rumble. He's going to have the opportunity. Ben, you've said you've saw numerous places that AJ Styles is a top contender. I would love that. But I don't see a storyline there. I don't see a reason behind that. He would be my favorite from a sentimental point of view. But do I see it happening? No. The other thing that scares me is if WWE decides to go with an oddball contender and go for shock value, is Vince is very, very high on Amos. And that scares the hell out of me because I could see Vince being excited about the big Power Man and building the monster like he did years ago with Yokozuna or something in that standpoint and try to have this monster heel and this monster personality for WrestleMania. I hope and pray to God that doesn't work and doesn't happen, but would it surprise me? Not in the least.
Well, Forbidden Door. I've seen sources that Bad Bunny was going to make an appearance. I saw that. He just impressed the heck out of me at WrestleMania. I'm sorry. He did a bang up job there. Who do I now? I'll say this before I give you the winner. Prepare to see a good number of tag teams go into defunct mode. Starting with the Mysterios. They're going to be going into defunct mode. Either Ray's going to throw his son over or Dominic's going to throw his own father over. There's going to be a feud there. Look for the Dirty Dogs to split because that's ran its course. don't rule out the possibility that Riddle turns on Orton. Don't rule that out. But who wins the Royal Rumble is AJ Styles. I'm sorry. There's a way to plug in AJ Styles in a storyline. There's a way. Now, whether it's Seth wins the title, takes the title back over to Raw, and you start a feud between Seth and AJ, turn AJ as a face. That's what you do. Then you set up the issue between Roman and Brock, because that's not over. And then you put the title back on Roman at WrestleMania by having Paul turns back on Brock. That seems to make the only logical sense to me right now. But I say AJ Styles wins the Royal Rumble.
That wouldn't be bad either, as far as if that plays out. Seth Rollins taking the Universal Championship over to Raw. And I think Rollins and AJ could put on a good match. So if AJ were to win, I think that's where it's going. Obviously, and having Brock go over to SmackDown. But man, there's many ways that this can turn out. Ryan, is there a possibility Johnny Knoxville could maybe win the Royal Rumble?
I absolutely think Johnny Knoxville will not win the Royal Rumble. As we've seen with the UFC, he is literally just on a tour just to promote the movie, which, hey, is great. But you know what that leaves room for? That leaves room for error. So as Johnny Knoxville's walking to the ring, we're going to see something like we saw with Carmella in a Royal Rumble 2019, where she's too injured to actually enter the Rumble. And we get another champion or former champion to enter, which is how I think well, I guess Johnny Knoxville would take a bump. I still cannot wrap my head around someone else that they've prepped for this to win it unless it's The Rock or something ridiculous. And I don't even think they're going to try to get The Rock into it until Survivor Series of this following year, when they come to Los Angeles and WrestleMania, whatever the next one is. I still think it has to be one of the champions. My pick was Brock Lesnar to win, just because of the Becky Lynch Asuka Rumble from back when they started. Whoever starts the match, whoever the first match is, they're going to lose, and then they're going to enter the Rumble. That's kind of how it's going to be. I feel like it's going to be Roman versus Seth the first match, or it's going to be Brock versus Bobby the first match, and whoever loses that match is going to enter the Rumble. I think as the Forbidden Door, the one I want it to be is Moose. Moose, like, we got Kenny Omega on Impact Television, like, it gave them that pop. I can only see WWE just being a little bit jealous, like, oh my God, AEW did it, we kind of got to do it too. And so if we ever got, I don't think we'll ever see Roman Reigns on a Impact Television, but seeing Moose on WWE television would be equivalent of that sort. So I think Moose would be a great Forbidden Door. Who I think we're going to get is Jeff Jarrett. So, I mean, like, we're going to want to get somebody, but they're going to give us the old man that's already been there. Like, is Jeff Jarrett a Forbidden Door, even though he's working with GCW right now or in other promotions? But I feel like that's what we're going to get.
Yeah, go ahead, Troy.
What do you guys think about the rumor of Taker showing up in a wrestling capacity, not showing up in general? Because that wouldn't surprise me, especially with his wife in the female Royal Rumble. But I saw the rumors about Taker too.
Well, Troy, to address that, that wouldn't surprise me, because the source is that Undertaker is supposed to be backstage. So I say it could be a possibility, because I can see that happening, because if the stars were aligned, which I think they are, Undertaker's going into the Hall of Fame this year. So it would not surprise me at all if we see the Undertaker make an appearance. That would be something. I feel
like that would be too cheap. I feel like he wouldn't want to. He'd show up. Like, he was so adamant with the way he ended. Like, I don't think he would want to, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
Because he said never say never. If the old man were to call me, I do it. But he knows that he has no other desire. He has no desire to get back in the ring. So he knows that he's at peace with that. The issue is, every now and then there's an itch and you got to scratch it.
I just don't know why they'd bring him back here, though. Like, I don't think they'd have him win. So what's the point of just throwing him in randomly to this year's Royal Rumble? If he had a legitimate chance of winning and headlining WrestleMania, then yes. But I don't think that this is the spot for him.
Just remember, he said on the Last Ride documentary that his biggest regret is the Roman Reigns match from WrestleMania, and he feels that he didn't give Roman his best, and he feels that he left Roman down. So maybe there's something brewing there. One last chance, one last shot to take that dirty, nasty taste out of your mouth. I don't know. Just a thought.
So for me, I think the Forbidden Door, Moose is getting thrown around everywhere, like Ryan said, and Roman and Moose have been going at it on Twitter a little bit. I think that Moose is the safe play for the Forbidden Door. I've seen rumors that he is listed to be on at the Royal Rumble. There's like something that was released that showed all 30 superstars. And in this one, it says AJ Styles wins, but Moose does return. Um, I could also see Cody Rhodes, and I'm thrown out there because he lost the title to Sammy Guevara the other night, and he is a free agent, and he came on publicly and said, "I'm a free agent. I can do what I want." And I feel like he could potentially return, and he could be one of those superstars that kind of just bounces. Like he's at AEW, and then he shows up to the Rumble, then he's over at Impact, and maybe even GCW. Like he just goes around as being a free agent. I think that's a possibility. This list that I have, I should say the favorite is Brock Lesnar right now, followed by Big E. Big E's a guy we haven't even brought up yet. But some on this list that I found that was kind of released, I don't know if it's any truth to it or not, but it says that Moose will be there, Tommaso Ciampa. It says Alberto Del Rio will make a return to the match. Who else is there? They think that Roman will enter in last. They think that Styles will ultimately win, though. But it's just interesting if we look at it that way. Names that are also thrown out that are on the odds list that could return: John Cena, but I just don't see that happening right now. There's Bray Wyatt.
He's also voiced that he's not. John Cena said that it's not this year.
Right. And I don't think he is too, but they had him on the odds. I also think Braun Strowman is someone to throw out there, and Strowman could eliminate Omos. I could see Omos in there throwing everybody out, kind of like how we saw Brock a few years ago. Then you hear Braun's intro hit, and he comes in to eliminate Omos. See that happening. Bray Wyatt, of course, I don't see him coming back, but that's a name that's being thrown out there. But I have to agree with Ryan in the fact that whatever match is first, and how I would write it is I would have Roman versus Seth as the opener, because the men's Royal Rumble is going to be your main event. So you always put your second best match first, which would be Roman versus Seth. And I think that will tell who will win the Rumble. Again, Seth wins, Roman enters, wins the Rumble. If Roman retains, we got to see what happens in the Brock match versus Lashley. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be great, but we can't wait for Saturday night. Any last thoughts, guys, before we wrap up the podcast about this week's Royal Rumble?
The winner's going, or the Forbidden Door wrestler is going to, if there's only one, but how many there are, it's going to be somebody that is not going to be tarnished by the loss, which means you're not going to get champion from another company coming in and taking the loss. It's going to be someone like a second or third tier character that will be, entering, that could sustain a loss. So you're not going to get your MJF. You're not going to get your, Moxley. You're not going to get Punk. You're not going to get people like, you're going to get people who's going to be able to sustain a loss.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to be a champ. But there's so many possibilities. And again, we say it all the time. This is why it's the greatest pay-per-view, in my opinion, of the year, because there is so many surprises. We don't know who's going to return. And this is a start to the road to WrestleMania. And we're going to be starting to shape WrestleMania, a 2-night event. It's going to be great. But we want to thank you for listening to this week's podcast. And Ryan, it was a pleasure having you on the show, our first guest. It's awesome getting you on here. If you want to, tell the viewers where they can find you on social media so that they can follow you.
Of course. Thank you guys again for having me. I am the Macho Fan on TikTok, Macho Fan RHE on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all those other ones. And thank you guys again, and love that Danhausen.
Of course, that was great. And you guys can follow us if you aren't already on YouTube, We Three Kings Wrestling. You'll be able to see our beautiful faces for the first time with Ryan here on YouTube. If you just want to listen to the podcast, maybe our looks don't appeal to you, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify. We're all on there at We Three Kings Wrestling. We're also on Instagram at We Three Kings Wrestling, and at Twitter, We Three Kings Pod. So we hope you guys have a great week. We thank you for listening, and we hope that you enjoy the Royal Rumble match. We will be back next week discussing the results of the Royal Rumble and the aftermath of it. So we once again thank you and have a good one.